Hello everyone. So my name is Abhishek. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're at day 12 and I have a very special guest on the channel. That's Kunal. So yeah. So thanks Kunal for being on my channel today. And I requested Kunal to come to our channel. I have been following Kunal's work on LinkedIn, even though he has very less experience in the software engineering. He's still pursuing his graduation, but I'm pretty impressed by the work Kunal is doing and how he shares the knowledge on the platforms like LinkedIn. So I requested him to come to our channel, and why don't he, or if it is possible for him to show us how to deploy an application onto AWS, show us how to make this application accessible to the internet. And I'm very glad that Kunal was able to find some time for us today, and he's here. So before we start the topic today, I'll just ask Kunal if he wants to introduce himself.
Sure. Thank you so much for the kind words, Abhishek. Really appreciate it. And thanks for inviting me here. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Kunal Verma, and I have been involved in the open source ecosystem for, I guess, more than 1 year now. Currently, I am working as a DevRel intern at Devtron, which provides an open source software delivery workflow for Kubernetes. And apart from this, I am also an ambassador for the Kube community, which was started by Sayam Pathak. uh, Basically, we aim at guiding folks from the community to start their cloud native journey and simplify the cloud native concepts for everyone. Yeah, pretty excited for this one. And yeah, thanks again for inviting me here.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, just to let everyone before we start. So the reason why I invited Kunal is because everybody gets to understand how to start their career, because Kunal started his journey before his graduation. You are still not graduated, right?
Yeah, I'm in third year right now.
Yeah. So whenever we talk to people like this, so anybody who is in their final year of their BTech or doing their graduation currently, so even you understand the path, how you can create your projects by yourself. So the project that we are going to demonstrate right now is a project that Kunal created by himself, right? He went through some materials, he understood, okay, this is how you can do it. He'll also show you what are the reference videos, or what are the reference materials that you can refer to, let's say, to install Git or something. So that is the main idea, that you can create your own projects and put them on your resume. Okay, so without wasting any time, yeah, I'll ask Kunal if you can share your screen and start the demonstration.
Sure. Just a second. Okay. I really hope the my internet works today.
Yeah, everything works for a good cause.
I'll just take a moment to shift this here.
Yeah, no worries.
I hope you are able to see my screen, right?
Yes, yes. I'm currently seeing the AWS
Great.
console.
Okay, so today, as Abhishek mentioned, we'll basically be seeing how we can deploy a simple Node.js application on AWS EC2. Don't be overwhelmed with the terms that I just used, because we'll be going over through each step, and I'm pretty excited. This is just a small part of the project that I made for the Cube Simplify community. So yeah, let's get started.
Awesome.
So this is a repository that I have
Kunal,
created. Yeah,
if I can ask you, can you increase the font size, please?
yeah, sure. How about now?
Perfect. Yeah.
Great. So this is the repository that I've prepared for this session, and you can all access it. It's public, and I'm sure Abhishek will link it down in the description box as well. So the very first step is, if you want to deploy any application on, let's say, AWS or any other platform, you find a GitHub repository and you just clone it into your local system, right?
Yeah.
So the very first step would be to cloning it. So let me just copy the URL here. I'll open my terminal. I'll just increase the font size for everyone to see.
Yeah.
I hope.
Perfect. Perfect. So you're on Mac?
Yeah, this is my Mac.
Nice.
Great. So right now I don't have I have some hidden files, but let's say. So I'll to clone a particular Git repository, there is a command called as git clone and the link, the URL of that particular repository. So, for folks who aren't aware of the Git commands that I'm using, I would highly recommend you to first check out. You can learn Git from any tutorials that are available on YouTube, but the Git docs that are there, they are very useful. And I learned Git through going through the documentation. And I'll recommend everyone through to if you want to learn some kind of a new tool, always refer to the documentation. I usually preferred videos when I got started in the community, but interacting with folks, experienced folks especially from the community, taught me that we should always refer to the documentation. I hope Abhishek agrees with that point as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Sure. So first step is you should have a basic knowledge of Git, always recommended to do that. The next is we'll run this particular command to clone the repository on my local system. So it might take a while. It all depends on the internet connection you have. We'll just let it happen. So what git cloning does is basically it would create a local copy of this particular repository that we have into your system. So right now we are done with the clone part, and if you see here in the UI, we have a folder called as AWS session, which is our repository that we had on GitHub, right?
perfect. Yeah,
So you can see all the files that are here, but we'll mostly use the command line today, but I'll definitely show you the UI in between as well. So let's just go into the repository as well. Again, I would recommend everyone. So first step was we cloned the repository. For that, we used a git command. I'll recommend everyone to learn git. Second is that learning some essential Linux commands. So for example, there is cd that is called as change directory. So right now I didn't use it because I am on an extension of the terminal. But if you want, I can show you that as well. So ls is basically list command, which is basically used to list down all the files and directories under in your folder particularly. So if you see, we have this folder here, AWS session, and if we want to go inside it, we'll use the cd command, which is change directory.
yeah,
That is AWS, and we are inside it. So you can see that we are in the main branch right now. Now if we ls in it, so these are all the files that are present in our repository in your application that you want to deploy, right?
perfect.
So why we cloned this particular repository in the first place? Because we want to test it locally. We want to test our project locally before we directly jump into deploying it over AWS, right?
Perfect.
So first have we cloned it. Second is, in this particular application we'll need some kind of environment variables to be
Mhm.
set. So I'll just open this in my VS Code so we can see the files more clearly.
Perfect. Yeah. So in between, I think this is one of the regular tasks that DevOps engineers does, because you always have to deploy your applications on platforms like AWS or EC2 instances or Azure virtual machines. So it is very important for everyone to understand how to deploy their applications on these platforms. And also, Kunal will show us, like I mentioned, how to expose these applications to external world. So yeah, go ahead,
I
Kunal.
hope the VS Code font is perfect, or should I increase it a bit more?
Slightly, please.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, good.
great. So we are inside our application. This is VS Code. And like I mentioned, we first need to set up the environment variables. Again, everything you need to follow along is mentioned in the repository that I just mentioned, this one. So, and I'll definitely recommend you to follow along while I'm doing this. So that would definitely help you to understand, right? You can clone
Yes.
this repository directly from you from GitHub. So first is we'll have to set some environment variables because this particular application needs that. So I'll quickly just make a file
Mm-hmm.
called as .env. So .env is basically an environment variables file. The dot represents that it's a hidden file. So it's visible on the VS Code terminal, but if you just go to the folder here, you won't be able to see that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You won't be able to see the hidden file.
perfect.
So basically,
Kunal,
environment, yeah.
sorry, but Kunal, how did you understand that to deploy this application, you require a hidden file called env, and you need to place variables inside this hidden file. So how did you understand these things when you initially started? Because this is a Node.js application. Probably many people don't understand if I'm deploying a Python application or any other applications. This kind of things might not be required, or for some applications you don't even have to set environment variables. So how did you understand? Did you go through a tutorial or? Yeah.
So that's a great question. Thanks for asking, Abhishek. When I was starting, starting to build this application, this is actually my very first project of Node.js. So I didn't even know Node.js before,
Yeah.
starting this particular project.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Googling really helped here. So at first, for some folks who aren't familiar with Node.js, we actually create a server.js file. So here we write all the configurations related to that particular application. And when I first, coded this application, I didn't do it from scratch. I got help from the documentations around. But when I coded it, I hard coded a lot of variables around the old configuration file. Then I noticed this was not how in a industry works, right? If we want to scale up our application, if we want to, so for example, if we want to, there is some variable called as name, and if we are using it again and again in a file, it doesn't make sense, right? So
Perfect.
the environment variable file is where you set that particular variable which you want to use again and again in your file. And typically an environment variable file is basically used to store credentials. So
Hmm.
in this particular application, you'll see when we'll accesses through the web, this is basically using a stripe integration. So Stripe is a payment gateway for example Paytm. So Stripe is basically used globally in the world, and it's used for exchanging payments and credit cards and stuff like that. So
Perfect.
so for that we needed some kind of public key and a secret key for interacting with the API. And for that I have to set the environment variables to set those public key, because we don't want the secret key to be exposed to the world, right? And this
Awesome.
is a hidden file, so it won't be visible to anyone. So that is why we used an environment variable file here. I hope this was clear.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, what you mean to say is anybody can, come up with their own project by looking into some sample projects on Google, or even they can start with your application. I'm glad that Kunal kept this repository public. So if anybody who is watching this video, let's say you are confused on what is happening here, you don't know Node.js, don't worry about it. You can firstly start the same steps that Kunal is doing, and use the same repository that Kunal has posted publicly, and I'll put that link in the description, and you can deploy your application first. After that you can go through the code and understand if you are interested, right? Or you can build your own. Let's say you're confident with Python, follow the same tutorial, build the application, even the hello world application using Python, or use the same application that Kunal is using. Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the environment variables files, I'll just quickly grab the important ones from here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So these are the environment variables that we are setting.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have domain, port. Again, this is specific to this particular application. You might not need to set these environment variables, but I've seen searching a bit on Google and talking to people that whenever we are, trying to deploy an application or even creating an application in the first place in production,
Mm-hmm.
environment variable files is definitely comes in handy if we want to set some secret credentials that we don't want the public to see, right?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. So we are done with that, and now it's time to run this application, right? So the very first step, I'll just close this one. So as I mentioned, this is a Node.js application, so we'll use something called as npm, which is called as Node Package Manager.
Yeah,
It is basically used to manage all the dependencies and the packages with
yeah,
our Node.js application.
yeah.
So first, the very first step is for you to write a command called as npm install. This will basically install all the necessary dependencies and packages that are basically needed by your application to run at the first place. So I'll
Perfect.
just run this one.
Yeah.
Again, this would definitely take some time because totally depends on the amount of speed you have of internet, and I'm in college, so I have a little weak internet, so bear with me.
No worries. Yeah. So for people who are coming from Python, you can consider it as a pip. Pip is like something
Yeah.
that installs your packages for Python. Similarly, you have npm for your Node.js.
Absolutely. So after you have done npm install, so you'll see this node modules folder where all the modules we have that are necessary for your application, plus additional modules that may be needed in the future as well. Now
Perfect.
we are all set to run the application. So type with me npm run and start. Okay, fingers
Amazing.
crossed.
Perfect.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
So all these steps are even available on the Kunal's GitHub, right?
Yep.
Don't worry. If you feel that we are going too fast, never worry. Stop this video here. You can go to the GitHub link again in the description, and you can see each and every step that we are doing here. Perfect.
Yep. And it has started. So it's saying server is listening on port 3000 and you can access application at localhost.
Great.
So let's just
See?
open localhost here. Enter.
Awesome. So
And yep, it's
perfect.
working. So this is again, I'm an ambassador for the Cube Simplify community, and this was a project that we created for an initiative called as Cube Simplify Workshops. A shameless plugin here. I hope Abhishek allows it.
No worry. Yeah.
Okay, great. So our project is working. So this might give you some confidence. Okay, my application is working locally. Now it's time to work with AWS and deploy it on the server. So I'll just stop here for a moment.
So till now, what we have done is we just deployed this application on Kunal's laptop. But what we are going to do now is to deploy this application on AWS, because in an organization, or most of the times wherever you're working, people try to put their code on cloud platforms or on their on-premises systems, not on the laptop, because laptop is only for your personal development. So now we will take it to the next level and deploy it on the AWS platform on an EC2 instance. Perfect.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go to AWS console. Okay, if you don't have an AWS account, you can easily create that with your email ID and password, set it, and it would lead you to this AWS console.
Mhm.
Just let it refresh.
Yeah. Again, Kunal, can you please increase the font size?
Yep, sure. I hope it's good now.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Great. So this is the AWS console, or you can call it as the home page of AWS. If you haven't used AWS at all till
Mhm.
now, you are able to do it today. Great. So if you have signed in with your Gmail account, you will be led here, which is basically your root account in AWS. So root is basically you can consider him as an admin user of your AWS account of your web services, and he basically has the access to everything in your particular project, right? So the very first step, and this is something I found again while I was learning about AWS, is something called as IAM, Identity and Access Management.
Yes.
So when consider the situation that you're working in an organization, right? And you have a lot of different people working under you, and you are their head. So as a head, you definitely would have access to the root account, the admin account, but you don't want that each and every team member has access to certain credentials or certain services or certain areas of AWS or your application, right? So basically we assign roles to all the different people in a particular team that you're working, which are working under you, right? So for that, AWS provides some kind of a service which is called as IAM, Identity and Access Management, through which we actually give roles to people working under you, right?
Perfect.
So for example, you're a developer, you would definitely need some kind of services that are working for that needs your code to work, right? For example, you are working on the ops side of it, so you would need some kind of services that are necessary for the ops team. So you don't want these two services to basically intervene with each other, right? So this is what IAM is used for. Abhishek would like to like, elaborate on this more if I was not clear.
Yeah, perfect. No, I think Kunal, you got it right, exactly right. But the only thing is, just want to add something. Like Kunal mentioned, if you're working in an organization, what usually happens is, as a DevOps engineer, or sometimes you get only limited access to your AWS account, which is very much needed. not just AWS. You keep this kind of things like role based access control systems in most of your platforms, whether it's AWS, whether it's Azure, or even on the Kubernetes platform side. So IAM is something that is used in AWS. So it is called identity and access management. And what happens is you can restrict your developers to some extent. Let's say you only want your AWS to access EC2 instances, and do not mess up with other AWS services like S3 buckets, or even sometimes what happens is you don't want people without proper knowledge to delete resources on AWS, right? Even such kind of things you can manage with IAM on AWS. Make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. Absolutely. Okay, so we are in the IAM dashboard here, and now let's create a user and give it a role. So we'll create a new user right now. We'll go to add users. Okay, and here is where you give your user a particular name. Let's say give Kunal Verma,
Yeah.
Shake.
Yeah. You
Let's
can
give it.
basically do all of these things with root user as well, but it is always a good practice to create a user and not use the root user. So that's what Kunal is trying to show us today.
Yep. So we give it a name and enable console access. We'll do that because we need to access the IAM console where we'll be doing everything today. So
Mhm.
I'll enable this and we'll create a custom password for now. Let me just do that quickly. If you're doing this for the learning purposes, I would say keep the password simple so you remember that. But
Yeah.
if you are, working in a team and working in an organization, keep a nice and secure password for your user. I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
Uh, Users must create. We don't need this right now.
Yeah.
Okay, the password must be entered, not confirm. Okay, let me just make a more secure one then. This should work.
Awesome.
Okay. Now we'll be setting permissions for a particular user. So
Mm.
there are two ways. One, this there are actually three ways, but mainly I would say first of all is add user to to a group. So you can basically create group permissions. You can basically create a group. For example, let's say develop, right? So you have created a develop group, and you can set permissions groups. For example, you have given three permissions in that particular group, so you can assign a user that particular permissions group, so that particular user would be basically attached to that group and all the permissions that are under that particular group, right? This becomes easy for the root user basically to give and not access individual permissions every time. But for
Yes.
now we'll attach policies directly. We'll just search through the list and attach it individually.
Yeah.
So for this particular demo, I'd say I'd go for the administrator access for now, but it all depends on the kind of services that you want to use with that particular user. Let's go with the administrator access for now.
Yeah.
We have set the permissions. Okay,
If
permissions
you
on
want to
this.
try if you want to try it more precisely at your end, you can probably only provide access to EC2, right? So just as a kind of thing that you want to try it yourself at your level. Let's say you don't want to grant administrator access on your account. Yeah. So like Kunal showed you, just search for EC2. You get all of the things, permissions related to EC2, and try it by yourself, right? It's kind of a workshop that you can do it yourself at your end. Great.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one thing I actually wanted to ask Abhishek is that if we have, for example, we are using AWS and we have given a specific permission. Let's say in this case EC2, right? So in the future, can we add or delete that permission?
Yes, you can modify. Like it depends on how you're doing it. Let's say you're doing it through a policy, right? So you can always go back to that policy, and you can increase the permissions, or you can remove a specific permission.
Great, great. Sure. So let's just move ahead. This is the review and create. So we'll review all the details, the name. We have set a custom password, and here's the permissions that we have given. We haven't made any tags here, but the
Yeah.
tags are basically used to identify the resources, attached with that particular user, because we might have more than one user, right, in a particular team.
Yeah.
So we'll go to create user.
Perfect.
Awesome. Now we have created a user. To show you how this looks, let's again go to the IAM console.
Perfect. So meanwhile, just to let you know, you can always skip all of these things and do it with your administrator user, but it is highly recommended to not use an administrator user and follow the steps that Kunal is doing, because he showed you how to create a user, and he'll also show you how to log in with this specific user that you have created. Perfect.
Absolutely. So here is the user that we have created just now. Let's click on it. And here are all the details that we set. So here are the permissions, any tags, the security credentials associated with that user. We didn't set those because I don't want to make things complicated, but this is something that you can, very well explore searching on the internet. And AWS documentation is again one of the amazing places to go if you want to learn more about how to, manage IAM users and stuff like that. So for now, let's head over to the console. When you have finished everything, here would be a link to sign in using that particular user. So we'll do this. We'll go here. So here we are at the sign in page. So I am signing in as an IAM user. I'll use the account ID, and this is the IAM username. So account ID is your root accounts ID, right? So we'll enter this here, and then we'll write our IAM username here.
Mhm.
So okay, I don't know why I'm able to. Yeah. So what was it?
Kunal underscore Abhishek, I guess.
Kunal Verma dash Abhishek. Yeah. Dash Abhishek. Yeah. I think the password is pretty much the same. Okay. Great.
Right.
So I'll just close everything else because this is where we'll be working on for the rest of the demo. So here, whenever you have signed in as an IAM user, you'll see your IAM username here at the rate the root username here, right? So this is how you identify that you are using the IAM console. Now it's time to create the EC2 instance. So you can search for the AWS services here. I'll select EC2.
Mhm.
So a little bit about EC2. EC2 is basically the short of Elastic Compute Cloud, and it's basically used to set up remote servers on using AWS. This is an AWS services, and it's basically used to set up remote servers on your local machine. So there is a very interesting use case. So let's say you have an old laptop, right, and you don't have that kind of memory or that kind of RAM to host some kind of a website, or do tasks that need more kind of memories. For example, Kubernetes. If you are using Minikube as a tool, if you are familiar with Minikube, that's a pretty heavy tool to use on old laptops. So this is where remote servers come into place, because they offer you a lot of memory, and you can access those servers even without considering your local machine, right? you,
Yeah.
you don't even need that kind of resource in your local machine. You can very well set up a remote server, and everything that will be done by that particular cloud service provider, and you can run as many high memory services as you want. It totally depends on the remote server that you are choosing. Yeah.
Perfect. Also, if we talk about a practical example, like this is again a practical scenario that Kunal has mentioned. If your laptop is old, you can get a compute instance on any of these servers. But even if you join an organization, right? So understand that you might need hundreds of thousands of servers. And what this cloud providers basically does is they will remove your maintenance overhead, right? Let's say you are creating all of these hundreds of servers on your local machines, or on your on premises. You install a hypervisor and you can create them, but it's a huge maintenance overhead for the system administrators, because every time they have to keep versions of them. They have to keep patching whenever there is a security vulnerability, right? And then they have to keep upgrading these instances. Instead, if you get these machines on cloud platforms, the maintenance overhead is gone. That's one of the main reasons why people move to cloud and create instances like EC2 instances or Azure virtual machines. And one more important thing is your cost can also go down, again, if you only efficiently use them. I don't say that just move to AWS and your cloud will go down. You need to do some important things that will not cover in this video, but just for the understanding. Perfect.
And I think that the scalability of the application also increases. For example, if you want to scale up your applications to more number of users, you can
Hmm.
very well set up a new instance and run another one to invite more users to your application and make sure that your application doesn't crash. So I think it also very is very helpful when you have to scale your applications up. Okay, let's go to the instances tab.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we'll basically create a new instance, and this is where all the instances that you create are listed down. I hope the font is perfect,
Yeah.
Abhishek,
Yeah.
for the viewers to view. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and go to launch instances. Let's go to launch instances, and this is where we'll be providing the details of the instance that we want to create in the first place. Yeah, it's open. Great. So let's give it a nice name for now. I don't know, demo Node.js, something like that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, this is application and OS images. So as I mentioned, that EC2 instances basically help us to create remote servers on our local machine. So this is basically asking what image do you want to use, or what operating system do you want to use in that particular remote server that you are going to create, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I try to go with the Linux server, Linux distribution. So we'll keep it simple and let's go with Ubuntu for
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Great. So here you can find all the information about this Ubuntu server. This is the 2022.04. That is the latest version, the LTS one,
Mm-hmm.
and details can be found, the architecture and stuff like that. The next section is instance type. So this basically is, you are providing that what kind of instance do we want, or what memory configuration do we want for that particular instance, right? So right now we have selected T2 micro, but if you want to see the other options that are available, so we can go a drop down here, and here are all the options. So the smallest one is T2 nano, then
Mm-hmm.
we have T2 micro, then T2 small, and it goes all the way medium, large, and then we have all the other options.
Yeah.
So again, this would depend on the kind of application and the kind of work that you'll be using on that particular instance. Every kind of instance type comes with their dedicated CPU, the dedicated memory, and the cost that will incur. So
Yeah.
for now, this will also tell you that whether that particular instance type is under the free tier or not. So if you don't know, AWS has a free tier as well. So if you are getting started with AWS, it provides you with a lot of services that are free to use. So you can very well use those services to learn, and you can experiment around AWS before uh, starting to give money to apply those services in the future.
Yeah.
So right now, let's go with T2 Micro. The next we have is key pair. So this is basically we'll be using to authenticate, or to securely logging in to our remote server. So key pair is basically just an authentication file that will be downloaded into our local machine, which we'll be using to log in into our remote server that we'll be doing just now. So I'll go to create a new key pair, and we'll name it as a demo one right now. Keep your type, and this will be a private key file format, so we'll just keep it by default .pem
Yeah.
and create a new key pair. So as you can see, we have a new demo.pem being downloaded. This we'll use when we log in into our server again.
Perfect.
And we can set some network settings, but I really don't want to complicate things, so let's keep it to default.
Yeah.
uh, I want to just mention this particular option, allow SSH traffic. So SSH is something that we'll be using again to log in into our remote server, but it is called as secure shell. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but this
But
uh, this is basically telling us that SSH can be done from anywhere, right? So anywhere, that means from any IP address. So each machine, that is, for example, my local computer or your local machine has an IP address. If you're not familiar with those concepts, I'll definitely recommend you to check out the documentation and some tutorials. These are some important concepts like security groups, IP addresses, and HTTPS, stuff like that, which will come really handy when you're using these cloud services, and in general in the DevOps ecosystem as well,
yeah.
right? Okay, we go down. I don't want to change anything. Just keep it all to default, and we'll go to straight away launch instance.
Perfect.
So this will create the stuff that is necessary, and the instance is created. Let's head over to the main page. And here we have the demo node.js instance. Every instance is given an instance ID, so we can recognize it through that.
Mm-hmm.
The instance state is pending as of now, so it's preparing the configurations. AWS is doing the work for you. We have the instance type, and we have the necessary information, availability zone, the zone which you are in. I am in right now in North Virginia. There are a lot of zones of AWS. I
Yeah.
am not that familiar with the zones concept of AWS as of now, but maybe Abhishek can shed some light on that part
Yeah,
quickly.
basically, typically it depends on which area do you want to create this instance. The primary reason is you can avoid any sort of latency. Like, let's say today I'm in India, okay, and for some reasons I want to create an EC2 instance in the nearby region, so that there is a less bit of latency. You are not very far away from your instance. So the good practice is to create in Asia Pacific, Mumbai, but to this free tier instances, always keep it to the default. Don't worry about all of these things at this point of time. So regions and availability zones are primarily used in AWS to avoid latency. AWS keeps their data centers across multiple places in the world, so those are called as regions.
Great. So yep, the instance is running, and if we just click over here, so here is where you'll get a lot more detailed information about your particular instance. So we have the instance summary where we have the public IP address. We'll use this right now to connect to it, and there is a lot more information, but we'll not go into it right now. So select your instance, then we'll go to the actions tab and click on the connect button.
Cool.
And here basically AWS shows you the various options that can be used to connect to your particular instance. uh, right now we'll be using the SSH client because I feel that it's the simplest way to do it right now. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
here we have all the information that we need. AWS actually provides you with how can you connect to your AWS instance. Let me just quickly fire up my terminal.
Cool.
Increase the font for everyone to see.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, go to the downloads folder because here is where my file was downloaded. So if you see here, we have the demo.pem, the security file that we need to SSH into our particular instance, right?
Yes.
So first step was opening an SSH client that we have done. Locate our private key. This is the key that is used to launch the instance. This is the demo.pem. It also gives you the name of that, so you don't misplace your particular key file.
Mm-hmm.
Now, run this command if necessary to ensure your key is not publicly viewed. So this is basic the Linux command chmod 400. This is basically used. The chmod command is basically used to change the permissions of file. So I guess the 400 is to make it executable. Is it correct, Abhishek?
No, 400 is to just keep it readable.
Okay.
So they basically follow the architecture of 4 plus 2 plus 1. So
Mhm.
4 means read, 2 means write, and 1 means execute. And what you are doing here is, there are three groups. One is yourself, one is to your group, and one is to the all the other people in the world. So that's why you keep it 0 0. That is, nobody else in your group can access this PEM file, and again, nobody in the world can access this PEM file. Whoever has access to Kunal's laptop. So it is only Kunal that only gets to read the file and not even write, make any updates to this file, or also even execute this file. So that's why you keep it 400.
Got it. So this is usually the format that we follow for doing SSH, the username at the IP address.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the minus I with the credentials file is something that you may or may not need right now. But as of now, let's do it way. We'll hit enter. It's asking for us to add this particular host. So what it's doing here is that we have a secret file in our particular system, which is I guess called as .ssh. We have a folder, and inside that we have a credentials file, and inside of that we have the allowed hosts file. So this is
Yes.
basically asking to add this particular IP address inside that particular file, so we can access it anytime that we want, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say yes, we want that.
So
We
it
trust.
adds here to the known host file. Makes
Yep.
sense.
And now we have successfully connected to our EC2 instance. So as you can see, we have the Ubuntu user, the IP address, and this basically shows that we are inside a remote server, right? So if we do ls, we don't have anything here. So till now, we have basically tested our project locally. We have discovered the AWS console. We created an IAM user. We created an EC2 instance, and we have already logged in into our remote server. So this is a lot if you are just beginning. So I would say give yourself a pat on the back. You have done a lot till now.
Yeah.
Awesome, great.
So
Now
now
the
let's
next,
do the
yep,
same steps that we did on Kunal's laptop, and let's get this instance running on the get this application running on the EC2 instance. Great.
absolutely. So we have done this particular step. Again, everything is mentioned in the GitHub repo. So even if you are following along and you get stuck somewhere, just go back to this README and you'll definitely find your way on configuring this. Now we are on the Ubuntu server. So this is a good practice again that we should follow whenever we connect to an instance, especially a Linux distribution. We have to update the outdated packages and dependencies, right? So for Ubuntu we have the command for this, that is sudo apt update. So I'll just quickly run this. This is basically will update all the necessary packages and dependencies for that particular instance. This is a good practice that everyone should follow, and the command might be different, and it totally depends on the operating system that you will be using in that particular instance.
Yes.
So it's done. It basically updated all the packages in our instance. The next step is basically to install Git. So because we want to clone our repository into this particular instance, so we want to use Git commands here as well. Right now, if I just type Git clone or anything with Git, it would show that Git is not installed or something like that. You must specify repository to clone. Okay.
Yeah, actually, for this image,
Mhm.
you got Git by default, but in some cases, you might not have Git default in your distribution. So the Ubuntu distribution that Kunal selected for this EC2 instance was so nice of it that it already has Git for us, but sometimes you don't have. But yeah, that's fine. We can proceed.
Great. Okay, this is something that I didn't know. So thanks for sharing, Abhishek.
No worries.
Okay, great. Then we can move ahead with the next step. The next one would be to configure Node.js, because we'll definitely need Node.js and npm to run our application, right? So we'll follow a guide which is given by DigitalOcean. Uh, Again, this is something that I discovered while learning about AWS and learning about remote virtual machines. DigitalOcean as one of the best documentations out there for each and every topic. So now when I have to search for anything related on creating applications or DevOps related stuff, I just type DigitalOcean in front of it, and you might find a useful documentation there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Great. So we'll just follow this step. So first we'll check our Git version. What is it? You don't need to do that, but let's just follow along the documentation for someone who's new. So we have the Git version 2.3. We have already done this to update the packages. We have
Yeah.
already installed Git in our system.
Perfect. Yeah,
Great.
we can proceed with Git clone directly. Yeah,
Yep.
because we already have all of these things.
Great. Okay, I think I have just opened the wrong documentation here. Let me just note this. And
Mhm. So yeah, Kunal finds DigitalOcean interesting. So yeah, always give it a try. When somebody, always it comes with your experience. So even today, I'll just give it a try and see how DigitalOcean documentations are whenever I have some issues.
absolutely. So I just searched to install Ubuntu on
Mhm.
a remote VM. This is for someone who's quite new to this. I'll just show them how it's done. You just search it and you'll find the DigitalOcean documentation
Great.
somewhere around here. Let
How
me
can I
see.
create a VM Ubuntu desktop in DigitalOcean? Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, this one.
Great. Yeah.
So you can even update the version that you're using of Ubuntu, because sometimes we have some major updates for the version that we're using. So I
Mhm.
would definitely recommend you to select the version that the instance is running on. So that is 22.4. I'll select that. And then we'll just dive into the steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what exactly are we doing now, Kunal?
We are just finding a way to install the Node.js and npm
Okay.
into our Ubuntu remote server, right?
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
So we'll
Probably
search
let's
to install.
search for install npm.
Yeah, Node.js, Ubuntu, and digital version.
Yeah.
Yep, there we have.
And I think
But
you already have that link on your GitHub repository.
yeah, I think I got carried away and posted the wrong link, so I'll update it.
No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah, this is the right one. So we are installing Node.js and npm. We have already done sudo apt update. Now we'll
Mhm.
just do sudo apt install Node.js. We'll just copy from here. And this is how the real process of development looks like, right? It gets a bit confusing in the middle, but don't worry, you find everything on Google. So let's say yes. And right now we are installing Node.js. So it's getting installed and we have Node.js installed in our system.
Mhm.
Check, we'll just type node-v and we have version 12. That might be the latest one. And then we'll install npm. So we have Node.js. Now we need a package manager for managing all the packages. The same steps that we did, but now it's on our instance, on the remote server that we just configured, right?
Yep.
We'll do this. I'll type in yes.
Yeah. So we're doing the exact same thing that we did on Kunal's laptop, but this time on the AWS instance.
Yep. This is basically we are setting up the server from scratch. I already had Node.js and npm installed, so we didn't had to do these steps. But right now, this is a machine. You can consider this as a completely new laptop, right? You're installing everything from scratch. So this
Yep.
will just set up the Node package manager. It takes a bit of time. Till then, maybe we can go through the documentation. Yeah, this was the last step. After this, the npm would be installed. Again, all of this comes while hit a trial and error. So when I first started using the remote server, I think I broke something and the server got crashed. I don't know what I did. So don't worry if something that happens. You can always restart it. You can always exit from the remote VM and you can restart your machine again from the AWS console as well. And you can again use SSH to log in into that. Okay,
Awesome.
great. Now we can check npm dash dash version. Yep, we have npm installed.
Cool.
Great. So we have Git, we have npm, and we have Node.js. The three initial things that we need for our application. Now it's time to use the git clone command again to clone our application into the remote server, right? So we'll just type git clone. We'll just quickly grab the URL from here
Mhm.
and we do this. Great. Now if we do ls, we have the application folder here. We have this repository. We'll type cd AWS. I wanted to write the full form of CD in the comments right now. Pause this video and write the
Yeah.
full form of CD because we discussed it previously.
Great.
Okay,
Let's see
let's.
how interactive it is.
Yeah, awesome. So we have the repository cloned successfully, and now this. Remember the step what we did after cloning the repository. Again, Abhishek, what did we do? I would like to ask you that after cloning the repo.
Yeah. So after cloning the repo, what we initially did was we did the npm install, which we have already done, and now we need to do npm run. Am I right?
You just missed one step. We have to set up the environment variable files
Oh
here.
yeah. Yeah.
So as I mentioned previously, environment variable file is something that is to be kept secret. So it
Yeah.
wasn't in
Passwords
the
and all.
repository in the first place. So we have to set it up again right now, right?
Yeah.
Because that is what we need for our application to run. So
Okay.
I'll just do a touch.env. Touch is a command which is used to create new files. right? So I'll just do that. If we do ls here, it's not visible, but if you want to view, okay, this is again something, a new Linux command for you to learn, ls-a. So this will basically list, again, ls basically lists all the files and directories that are present. Minus a flag will do is list all the hidden files as well,
Yes.
right? So if we do this, you can see we have the .env that we just created. The .git file is because this is the GitHub repository, right? So this is what we, when it is created, when a folder is, folder becomes a Git repository. Right now
Yes.
we need to edit the .env file with the environment variables. So I'll just use Vim for that. So Vim is basically a file editor, I would say, for the terminal, built for the terminal. If you have been involved in the developer ecosystem for a while, you would definitely have heard a lot of memes related to Vim, right? How people struggle to exit Vim.
Yeah.
Okay, vi.env, and we are inside Vim. Let's type I. I is to enter the insert mode. Now, if we type anything, we'll be editing the file there and then, right? So I'll just quickly grab my environment variables.
Yeah.
Let me just see, where are they? Yep, right. I hope I'm able to paste those. Yep, great. So these are the environment variables. Now we have edited the file. Now, be careful. You can get
So for
stuck here.
somebody, yeah,
Mhm.
for somebody to run this application, how do they get this publishable key and the secret key?
So this is something that Stripe has it. So you can create a demo account of Stripe. You can search on the internet. I can just show you. So Stripe. So here you can go to the
Again,
Stripe
this is
dashboard
just
again. Mhm.
for, yeah, sorry for interrupting. Again, this is just for this application. Don't worry if it is overwhelming for you. We can always do with simpler applications, but just for the demo, we wanted to keep a real-time application, show you how a real-time application is deployed. That's why we were using this. Yeah, Kunal will show you. If you want to try the same application, Kunal will show you how to get this access keys.
Sure. So you can head over to Stripe. You can create a demo account. You can sign into
Mhm.
that account.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly show you. So again, as I mentioned, Stripe is basically a payment gateway which is used to take payments, and that is available globally. So if you want to use sort of a payment page on your particular application, right, you can definitely try out Stripe. There are a lot of other options. There is PayPal as well, and we also have a lot more other options. But I felt that Stripe is something that this application is using, and I'll just show you how to get that access key and private access key and stuff. So I'll just quickly log it in. If you want to know more about Stripe, I would say you can check out the YouTube tutorial. But just to follow along, you can create a demo account on Stripe, right? And I'll just show you how you can access those publishable secret key. Again, that is for the testing purpose only because I have the test mode on. That is not something that you can use with a production environment, right? So if we go to more, let's say if we go to developers, if we head over to API keys, so here is where you'll find your publishable key that we just mentioned here. And to
Got
find
it.
your secret key, you can reveal your test key here. Again, this is for only for the testing purposes because the test mode is on. You can't make real time payments from these, so don't worry at all, right?
Awesome.
So now that we have edited the .env file, in order to exit Vim, right now, remember we are in the insert mode. Just type exit. So we are out of the insert mode. Type colon and X. So what it will do is it will basically exit the file, plus it will save the content that we just edited, right? I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of people also use WQ, but when I search on the internet, I found the alias of WQ as to be X, so I have the habit of using X now, right?
Cool.
So we have exited Vim. Oof. Okay, now let us see what exactly is inside a file. Let us double check if the file was even edited at the first place. For that, we'll use a command called as cat. So cat basically helps us, again, this is a Linux command which helps us to view the contents of a particular file, right? So if we do, yep, all the environment variables are set here, right?
Cool.
So let's just clear the terminal. And now it's the time that we've been all waiting for. to run the application, right? So
Yeah,
first we'll do npm install, the same steps that we followed to install the node modules folder here for the packages that we need. You can see how fast it installed all the packages. This is because we are using a remote server, and the server is it's basically faster than the internet that I am using right now, I would say, but it might be the case that you have a faster internet than me. So after that, we'll use npm run start.
that's it.
So this is again, this is something that is dynamic. That is, I typed into the server.js file. You don't need this, but it just shows that your application is running right now inside your remote VM. Now here's a catch. I'll just show you. Okay, now if you're just following along, you would imagine, okay, my application is running on the EC2 instance, and now if I just head over to my IP address here and we just copy it, we type my
Columns,
port. So I'll
1000.
the port is 3000, I believe.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, the port is 3000. I hit enter. Okay, you think the application should be deployed now, but it won't.
Yeah,
Yeah, you will be here. The site can't be reached. So what happened here is that the application is running inside a remote VM successfully. It is not giving any error, but we are accessing it through the open internet. So it doesn't know that whether at this particular port in this particular IP address an application is running. The internet doesn't knows, right? So we have to expose this particular port number to the open world, to the internet, right? So what we'll do is, this is a simple step, and this particular thing I learned the hard way, to be honest. I had to search a lot of Stack Overflow and the internet to get to know why is internet not working in the first place.
yeah, yeah.
So we'll just select
Really
our
important.
instance and we'll go to the security. We'll go head over to the, I'll say, security groups.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, watch this carefully, what Kunal is doing, because this is where most of the people fumble. Like, you deploy your application onto AWS and assume things will be perfect, but always there is a lot of things like the inbound traffic rules that Kunal is going to show you, where you do the actual magic to
Yep.
get your application working on AWS. This is the magic that you have to do. Yeah,
And this is the page that most of us, if we are beginning, would be familiar with. So don't worry at all if you are seeing this 2 or 3 times when you are trying to deploy an application very first time.
yeah,
Right. So we just edit the inbound rules. So inbound rules is basically we are allowing the inbound traffic. That is, we are allowing our EC2 instance to connect with the open internet, and we are saying to AWS, hey, we have a port, we have an application running on port 3000, and we want you to expose it, and we want you to allow traffic to it from the open internet. So this is what we are doing right now here. So we'll go to edit inbound rules. We'll add a new rule. Don't worry if you don't understand this. I am just showing you what you have to do. But if you want to know more about this, I'll definitely recommend you to search a bit on the internet about inbound rules on AWS. But if Abhishek wants to touch over that topic
no, no,
in
that's
short bit,
completely fine.
okay,
I think, yeah. At this point of time, for the audience who are watching our videos, till the level of knowledge that the people at day 12 has, I think this is pretty pretty good. Yeah,
awesome. So here we'll specify the port range that we want. So right now we don't have a range, but we have a port that we want it to allow. So we'll just type in port 3000. We leave everything as it is. We'll just to this means anywhere. So this particular port can be accessed from anywhere on the internet, right? And we just save the rule.
very good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
The you can see the security group has been added and the port range is here. Now something you'll notice is that the first rule that was added is SSH and the port range is 22. So this is how you were able to SSH into
yes,
a particular instance. So this was
yes,
already added. If this wasn't added, you wouldn't have been able to even connect to your remote server on your local machine in the first place, right? So now your application is running and we have exposed the port here. Now if we try to hit enter, okay, yay, congratulations.
congratulations. Yeah, so That was awesome. Finally, we were able to run this application on AWS. Isn't it
Yep.
cool? So,
Yep.
everybody is watching this video, everybody who is watching, if you really like this one, yeah, click on the comment section. It was very exciting, right? Yeah,
And give yourself a pat on the back and a congratulations.
cool. Yeah, that was so simple and that was so awesome, Kunal. I think you made this demo a very, very, very easy one for everybody who is watching this video. And don't forget that Kunal has each and every step on his GitHub repository as well. So even if you're not able to follow our video, you can always go back to this GitHub link, do each and every step. Yeah, project is deployed on AWS. Yay. So you can follow each and every step that we talked about and you can deploy your application on AWS. And if you were really impressed, go ahead to the LinkedIn, search for Kunal Verma. I'll put the link also in the description and write a thanks for Kunal because of all the effort that Kunal has put in here for us. And yeah, don't forget, like it is always good to give credit to someone, or it is always good to, whenever you learn something from someone, just as a token of appreciation, write a thank note to Kunal for all the effort that he has put in and for the demo that he has given us. I'll do that personally. And if you enjoyed this video, also do that.
Awesome. Again, the last question that I would like to ask Abhishek before we part ways is it okay? My application is deployed on AWS, right? So can I access it from any other laptop now? Is it
Yeah,
possible?
for sure. Because you have a public IP address, and this public IP address is the name itself indicates that this is a public IP address. And if you watched the video clearly, there was no connection, right? Kunal hasn't told that access only from my laptop. If he had to do that, there was a place called source where you put the source addresses as 0.0.0.0. That means anybody from any place in the world should be able to access this application. If you wanted to restrict to a specific IP range, which always happens in an organization, you want to probably whitelist only a specific range of IP addresses, only one of your customers can access it. So that's the place where you do it, right? So in the inbound traffic rules, just provide the IP range which you want to allow, or the CIDR block which you want to allow, and then you can do that magic that only Kunal can access that applications, but not Abhishek, right?
Yep, got it. Thanks for answering, Abhishek.
Thank you
Great.
so much, Kunal. Yeah. So if you have any questions for Kunal, or if you have any questions for me, do post that in the comment section. Both of us will be very happy to answer your questions. And if we get to learn anything from your questions, again, we'll be more than happy with that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy the video, and we'll keep Kunal busy in the future as well. So if you want to learn anything more from the Kunal, go to Kunal's GitHub repository. If you find anything interesting, do post that in the comment section. I'll make sure by requesting Kunal to get his time one more time. Thank
Awesome.
you so much. Yeah.
Bye,
So
everyone.
we'll end this video here, but again, like I mentioned, we'll still keep the engagement on the comment section. Thank you. Take care, everyone.